We're going to be talking about the tiny 1.9 megabyte tool that's making Microsoft's worst nightmare come true, and millions are using it.
So to really understand the stakes here, we have to look at what went down in the second week of February 2026. A single unpaid developer by the name of Batard went public with a pretty striking accusation against Microsoft, the second most valuable company on the planet.
The tool at the center of this global tug-of-war is called Rufus.
This file has immense structural power simply because of its reach. Rufus has crossed over 200 million downloads in its lifetime. That is a user base larger than the entire population of Brazil. Every single one of those downloads represents a person making a deliberate choice to bypass the pathway Microsoft built for them, opting instead for this tiny alternative.
Now, what makes this tiny file so powerful is how it systematically dismantles every artificial gate Microsoft has built around installing Windows 11. With just a few clicks, Rufus allows a user to skip the TPM 2.0 chip requirement, bypass the minimum RAM threshold, and completely ignore Secure Boot. Oh, and it also lets users skip that mandatory Microsoft account sign-in, meaning you don't have to ping Microsoft servers just to set up your own local machine. It even lets you disable the automatic BitLocker encryption that Windows 11 turns on by default. And let's be clear, none of this is piracy. It's simply a formatting utility that just removes the roadblocks.
To really understand why a simple formatting utility became the center of a tech war, we have to travel back to the inciting incident, which was the summer of 2021. This was when Microsoft announced the launch of Windows 11, and along with the new operating system came strict new hardware requirements, specifically the mandate for a TPM 2.0 security chip built into the motherboard. Suddenly, out of nowhere, machines manufactured before roughly 2017 were officially declared incompatible.
That single announcement created a problem of absolute sheer scale. Overnight, between 240 million and 400 million perfectly working, paid-for PCs were stranded. Users were essentially handed a massive ultimatum: buy completely new hardware that they might not actually even need, stay on Windows 10 and lose all security support after October 14, 2025, or find a workaround. Well, for hundreds of millions of people, Rufus became that workaround.
And this wasn't just the one-time event, right? Over the years, it's built into this mechanical pattern of asymmetric warfare. Basically, Microsoft closes a door, the Rufus community finds a window. Microsoft closes the window, they find a different one. Over 4 years, we've seen 3 highly specific collisions where Microsoft tightened its grip and the community immediately engineered a way through.
So let's look at Skirmish 1. This happened in August 2022. Microsoft hardened its download infrastructure, which broke a companion script in Rufus called Fido. Now, Fido is a script that let users pull genuine Windows installation files directly from Microsoft servers. Suddenly, the script was just being met with server errors. Batard found that Microsoft's website had become actively hostile to the script's queries. But get this, within days, an open-source contributor named William Bullen figured out a patch, completely restoring the functionality. The speed of the community was just incredible. Then came the second collision in late 2024, and this one was even bigger. Microsoft shifted tactics from the download servers to the actual installer itself. With the Windows 11 24H2 update, they blocked the long-standing appraiser file trick that Rufus had relied on for years to bypass compatibility checks. People found themselves entirely locked out of major updates. But once again, the response was incredibly fast. Batard completely routed around the block by using registry edits instead of file replacement, achieving the exact same bypass through a totally different mechanical path.
Which brings us to the third skirmish in February 2026. Microsoft servers began rejecting download requests for Windows 11 Insider previews that lacked an interactive browser session state. Essentially, if a real human wasn't manually clicking through a browser, the request was blocked. This was the moment Batard accused Microsoft of deliberately targeting his script. However, to impartially look at the full picture here, this block also overlapped precisely with Microsoft patching a legitimate security vulnerability known as CVE 2026-2398. So whether the block was a deliberate attack on Rufus or simply collateral damage from a genuine security patch, well, that remains a huge point of debate.
The crucial point here is structural. Why does a trillion-dollar company struggle against a 2-megabyte file? It's all about asymmetry. Microsoft is a massive centralized entity that has to preemptively anticipate and block every conceivable workaround across a global network. Rufus, on the other hand, operates under an open-source GPL license. Thousands of technically capable eyes can look at the code at any time. The community just needs to find one single path through the wall, and they're legally protected to do so, since Rufus contains literally zero Microsoft intellectual property.
But to be completely fair to Microsoft, it is vital to understand what they are actually trying to enforce.
TPM 2.0 is not arbitrary security theater. It really isn't. It is a hardware-anchored security chip that provides genuine, measurable protection. It supplies encryption keys, ensures a verified boot chain that detects tampering before the operating system even loads, and offers resistance against deep, firmware-level attacks that software alone just can't stop. Security researchers largely agree that this requirement is technically very sound.
The uncomfortable truth sitting underneath this entire story is that both things can be true at once. Raising the security floor across the global PC ecosystem absolutely makes everyone safer, for sure. But deploying that upgrade in a way that effectively strands a population of working computers larger than most countries, essentially turning it into a forced hardware replacement cycle, well, that is a massive point of friction.
Into this exact tension dropped Rufus version 4.14 in April 2026. And guys, this wasn't just a minor patch to fix a broken download script. This was a massive escalation. It transformed Rufus from a simple bypass tool into a comprehensive suite for taking total control of the Windows operating system installation process.
Version 4.114 really escalated things. It lets users check a box to automatically strip out Microsoft's bundled features, like Copilot, Teams, and the Bing search box, before they ever even see the desktop. It includes a silent, unattended installation mode that skips all those annoying setup prompts and Cortana narrations. But most importantly, it actually lets users deploy Microsoft's own advanced SKU side policy rollback protection. This brilliant detail proves that Rufus isn't just about stripping away security. It's about giving the user the choice over which protections to apply and which bloatware to reject. However, we do have to pivot sharply to the very real dangers here, because bypassing Microsoft's hardware requirements is definitely not consequence-free. When you use Rufus to skip the TPM 2.0 check, you are actively lowering your machine's defense against physical tampering. Now, for a standard home user playing video games, that might not matter much. But for activists, journalists, or anyone whose device could fall into hostile hands, operating without that hardware-level encryption is a genuinely different and frankly severe risk calculation. There is also a secondary, quieter risk driven by this ongoing war. Every time Microsoft successfully blocks the official Rufus script from downloading Windows files, users inevitably go searching for alternative sources. And when people flock to unofficial forums or random video descriptions for Windows ISOs, they very often accidentally download malicious, repackaged software. These unofficial mirrors are prime real estate for hidden malware dressed up as a convenient download. It's a real problem.
So if you are going to navigate this ecosystem, practical mitigations are absolutely essential. First off, only ever download Rufus directly from its official GitHub repository. Second, verify that you are actually running the current, digitally signed release, not some cached copy from a third party. And finally, take the 2 extra minutes to read the specific bypass options during the setup menu. Understand exactly what security features you are opting out of before you hit start.
Which brings us to the core of this entire explainer. Beyond the download blocks, the registry edits, and the hardware requirements, this is fundamentally a debate about control. Does the device sitting on your desk right now belong to you, the person who paid for the hardware, or does it belong to the trillion-dollar company that built the operating system running on it? 200 million people have already used a 2 megabyte file to answer that question for themselves.